The diving and the weather this November has been absolutely spectacular in the Hauraki Gulf, and today was no different. We had great forecast all day with beautiful flat calm seas, and we're hoping for the best on the way out. Always try and keep a rubber cork on the end of my spear so I don't stab anything. It's a bit stubborn this time coming off. And I like to keep it in my knife pouch because I keep my knife on my weight belt. So then I can put it back on when I get back onto the boat. This saves any damage to anybody or to your boat if you've got an inflatable. The visibility was good, and straight away I spotted this really cool sight. There was a big squid sitting in the kelp here, and you see how it attacked and ate a little fish that it was hunting. It was doing its best to camouflage against the weed, but I certainly can't pass up a nice squid. It's one of my favourite things to eat. You'll find, especially the start of summer, about this time of year into December, you might see more and more squid during the daytime, as I think they're spawning this time of year. Of course, at night time, you'll be able to find lots of them. Now normally to deal with a squid when you get it, you can just rip the head off, but I actually like to keep the tentacles because I like eating them as well. So I'm going to do my best to try and allow it to ink as much as possible to get all that ink out. I'll keep the head and the body and chuck it into my float boat. You can see all the little eggs coming out of the body, so it must be spawning season for them. When we went out deeper, the viz was even more stunning, especially for this time of year when you often get really bad algae blooms. This makes diving out deeper a lot easier when you can make out the bottom. Although I wouldn't really be able to see a fish, I can make out where the kelp patches are and work from there. On only my second dive, it was already looking really good, with good bait fish on the bottom, the odd trevally, and then I spotted this nice boarfish. It's just slowly cruising around, probably looking for a mate this time of year. And as I try and get up on top of it, he spooks. I have plenty of air left over, so I do my best to chase the fish down, staying high up in the water column, but trying to keep it in sight to see if it's going to stop somewhere. Although most people will tell you don't chase fish, in certain situations it does pay to do so. Being able to read fish behaviour is far more important than how many rubbers you've got on your gun. And sure enough, I stayed nice and high and gained the boarfish curiosity. If I went to the bottom, that boarfish would have raced it off out of sight and I wouldn't have seen where he went. Boarfish make really great eating, and they have high yield of fillet off the fish, as they're not so much like a snapper and you're able to fill it right up hard against the head. This is a male boarfish, you can tell by all the yellow spots. Very beautiful fish. At this time of year, and for the next few months, they'll be pairing up with female boarfish, sometimes in schools, as they mate for the season. This is typically the best time for us spearos to try and find them. And just showing you here when icking a boarfish, although they have that hump rising up above their head, where you actually icky them is just behind the eye. For virtually all fish, use an eye as reference for where you icky them. That's where their brain's going to be. It was looking really great early on, and I saw Sophie chase after something on the bottom, so I quickly whacked my camera on. She'd managed to find a nice school of teriki and shot a really nice specimen for up here. Teriki for us spearos are not super accessible in the sort of Hauraki Gulf. Normally they get caught in deeper water. Sophie's got a really, really nice big one for up here. And of course, while all this happened, then the kingfish start turning up. And there was plenty of good kingfish swimming around. The action was really starting to heat up with all sorts of fish turning up. But like normal, I try and get to the bottom to inspect the whole situation, as it was quite hard to see from the surface. It pays to turn and spin as you go down, as there could be fish anywhere. A great looking spot and a really nice school of teraki. Again, a very common fish as you head south, but up here, not so common for us sparrows to encounter in under 30 metres. And these all seem to be good sized ones, especially this nice big one.
When you do, you will change the world.
When looking for teraki up in the sort of upper North Island, they'll often hang around Porai, and that's a good place to start looking for them. Once you find them, they often can be pretty easy to spear. The best approach is lying on the bottom if you can, as they'll tend to come in. Just like the boarfish are icky just behind the eye. At 1.5 kilos gutted and gilled, it was a good fish. Then the snapper started turning up. It was really, really an amazing dive. The big kingfish would spend a lot of time just milling below us, and the snapper would join in, being really, really docile. Sophie made a perfect approach here and put a really, really good shot, stoning the snapper at long range. It was quite unusual behaviour for snapper, as they'll tend to be a bit spooky, but these ones seem to be really docile. Even after Sophie shot that snapper, they were still milling mid-water all around us, with lots of good sized fish. They seemed to be intermingling with the kingfish, and the kingfish weren't moving around too much either. It's quite difficult to capture it all with the camera, but it was extremely exciting diving. Sophie makes another drop to see if she can get one more. Then she starts getting a little bit torn whether she shoots this really big kingfish or this nice snapper. She decides the snapper was an easier target, so she shot that. Although I'll be that guy, some of these fish were really nice size for in the Hauraki Gulf here, pushing around that 30 kg mark. But with these bigger kingfish, we ideally didn't want to get a big one. As you can see, we already were getting plenty of meat from all these other fish we were getting. It was hard to keep the excitement at bay and try and withdraw ourselves from shooting too many fish. back on the bottom, and now some big trevally were turning up. There was a nice hump-headed trevally that circled around me when I was lying on the bottom. And of course all the teriki, there were heaps and heaps of them, especially by our standards here. Option 1, we could shoot a whole heap of these, take them home, then have to fillet them all and realise that we had way too many fish. Or option 2, we just left most of them and just shot what we needed. Teriki is certainly a species that is under a lot more pressure in the Hauraki Gulf than maybe most people think, as people typically put most of their attention onto snapper and kingfish. So normally when I find an area like this where you find lots of teriki, I tend to leave them most of the time. Maybe shoot 1 or 2 and leave the rest there, so I know I'm always able to go back and get a feed if need be. If we just shot up the whole school, well of course they won't be there next time. Useful technique that we use all the time is I have my Wettie drop weight connected to my float line, to my float boat, so I'm able to anchor it on the area that we're diving, because there was a little bit of current here, and me and Sophie could take turns with our Wettie reel guns to be able to make dives and shoot fish if we wanted to. The boat. I was really keen to get a kingfish, but the main issue we had most of the divers, they were too big. So I was trying to shoot one of the smaller ones, just so it was a little bit easier to deal with and we didn't have too much kingfish. We tend to go diving every single week. It wouldn't be a smart decision to shoot a whole heap of fish on one dive. Sort of pick out one that I think's maybe like 10 or 12 kilos, something like that. When approaching kingfish, your best bet is to try and get down to their level. They'll tend to be a little bit more docile and a little bit more friendly. Thinking the fish is only 10 or 12 kilos, I don't let it pull any real line up, and I'm just going to drag it to the surface. The fish is fairly hurt as I've put a good shot just behind its head. But I cut away a bit of the footage as this gets pretty drawn out and the fish doesn't really want to give up too easily. So I asked Sophie to put a second shot in. As often in a situation like this, I just want to get the fish out of the water as fast as possible, as it's a really good opportunity for a shark to come and eat it otherwise. Sophie puts a really good shot and I soon discovered that it's a lot bigger than I thought it was. At around 20 or 22 kilos, it was bigger than I expected and bigger than I hoped for. It wasn't just us enjoying the fantastic diving. Rion, who hasn't done a huge amount of spearing up here, managed to secure his first boarfish. It was a fantastic dive for him as well.
When you do, it will change.
And the theme of the day continued. It was absolutely flat calm with not a breath of wind. We ended up heading off early as we had more than enough fish. I can't wait to get back out as there's some amazing diving to be had.